On a quiet morning, a black woman was pulled over by police on baseless charges. Even after showing full documentation, she was handcuffed in front of the crowd, but the officer had no idea that woman was a federal judge. And as the camera captured every moment, shocking secrets slowly came to light, forcing those involved to face the consequences. Before we dive in, what time are you listening? Where are you from? Drop a comment below and tell me. The crisp morning air of Liberty City usually carried the promise of a fresh start, a symphony of distant sirens and the low hum of early traffic. For Judge Ariana Vance, however, this particular Tuesday began with an unexpected dissonance. 20 years on the federal bench, preceded by a distinguished career in military intelligence and as a JAG officer, had instilled in her an almost preternatural calm. Even as the flashing blue and red lights painted the interior of her dark late-model sedan, 5 blocks from the imposing facade of the Federal District Courthouse, her pulse remained steady. Through her rear-view mirror, she watched the approaching officer, his hand resting on his service weapon, his posture radiating an aggressive certainty. "Step out of the vehicle, ma'am. This car is flagged as stolen." Officer Rick Donovan's voice, sharp with accusation, cut through the quiet morning. His cruiser's dashboard camera, a silent sentinel, blinked red, capturing the prelude to what would become the most significant misstep of his career. Judge Vance, known for her landmark rulings on civil liberties, particularly one just yesterday that redefined police conduct during traffic stops, understood the intricate dance of power and procedure. She knew when to speak, and more importantly, when to allow others to expose their own vulnerabilities. Her fingers moved deliberately towards her purse, a practiced gesture. Donovan tensed, his orders coming faster now, overlapping in their urgency. The doors of a second patrol car swung open, backup arriving for a threat that existed only in Donovan's mind. Judge Vance's grip tightened around her federal judicial identification. She knew exactly how this moment would culminate. They, however, did not. "Not yet. I said don't move." Officer Donovan bellowed, his knuckles whitening around the grip of his sidearm. Judge Vance froze, her ID card partially withdrawn. Morning commuters slowed, their gazes drawn to the unfolding scene, cell phones emerging from car windows, recording devices capturing what Donovan's own camera already saw. "Officer, I am simply retrieving my identification, as you requested," she stated, her voice even, devoid of the adrenaline that now coursed through her veins. "I am Judge Ariana Vance of the Federal District Court." Officer Ben Carter, younger, his face marked by visible uncertainty, exited the second cruiser. His eyes darted between his partner and the composed woman in the driver's seat. "Donovan, maybe we should..." "She matches the description." Donovan cut him off, reaching for his radio. "Dispatch, requesting additional units for a possible stolen vehicle recovery." The constitutional violations began to pile up with each passing second. No reasonable suspicion, no proper identification check, and an immediate escalation without justifiable cause. 30 years of experience, spanning from a decorated military intelligence officer to the youngest federal judge in the district's history, had prepared Judge Vance for this precise moment. She silently counted to 10, meticulously planning 3 moves ahead. Carter shifted his weight. Discomfort etched across his features as more civilians gathered. The tension in his shoulders suggested a recognition that the situation was rapidly spiraling beyond established protocol. "Ma'am, please exit the vehicle slowly," he requested, his tone a stark contrast to Donovan's. Judge Vance complied, her movements deliberate and precise. The gentle morning breeze caught the silk of her blouse as she stepped onto the asphalt, standing tall despite the officer's attempts to diminish her. Her federal court credentials remained visible in her hand, sunlight catching the federal seal. The courthouse expected her in 15 minutes for a police misconduct hearing. The profound irony of the situation was not lost on her as she carefully observed Officer Donovan's name tag, committing every detail to memory for the inevitable actions that would follow. "Place your hands on the vehicle," Donovan commanded, pointedly ignoring the identification she held. Judge Vance placed her palms against the warm metal of her car, her dignity intact, despite the calculated humiliation. The true judgment, she knew, had yet to begin. "I am Judge Ariana Vance of the Federal District Court," she repeated, enunciating each word as Officer Donovan patted her down with an unnecessary thoroughness, his breath hot against her neck. "You are making a significant error, officer," Donovan scoffed. "Everyone's innocent, everyone's important. Turn around slowly," the gathering crowd murmured as Judge Vance complied, her gaze sweeping across the street to the bystanders. A young man in a tailored suit, his eyes fixed with intense focus, locked gazes with her. It was Leo Maxwell, her former clerk and now an assistant district attorney. She gave an almost imperceptible nod. Maxwell immediately pulled out his phone, his fingers moving swiftly across the screen as he began recording the scene. Judge Vance noted the precise time: 9:17 a.m. Every procedural violation added another layer to the official record that would soon become compelling evidence. "Check her ID, man," Officer Carter suggested, his voice low, his discomfort palpable as more cars slowed to witness the spectacle. "After we secure the situation," Donovan dismissed, reaching for his handcuffs. The metal glinted in the morning light as he unclipped them from his belt. Judge Vance's mind flashed back to her law school days, to her first encounter with systemic prejudice when a professor had suggested she might be more comfortable in family law rather than constitutional theory. She had graduated at the top of her class, authored 3 landmark papers on Fourth Amendment protections, and had gone on to become the youngest federal judge in the district's history. The handcuffs clicked shut around her wrists, the sound echoing in her ears like a gavel striking wood. "Officer Donovan, badge number 4572, you are currently violating Code 18 Section 242 regarding deprivation of rights under color of law," she stated calmly. "Officer Carter, badge number 6309, you are witnessing this violation." Donovan tensed. "How do you know our badge numbers?" "I pay attention," she replied simply. Across the street, Attorney Maxwell slid his phone into his pocket, evidence secured. He made a call, speaking urgently into the receiver. Judge Vance recognized the familiar rhythm of his crisis protocol. 3 people would be notified: the Chief Justice, the District Attorney, and her own judicial clerk. "Search the vehicle," Donovan instructed Carter, who hesitated before complying. Vance watched as Carter opened her car door, carefully examining the interior. His movements lacked his partner's aggressive certainty. When he opened the glove compartment, he found her vehicle registration and proof of insurance, both clearly displaying her name. "Donovan," Carter called out, holding up the documents. "These look legitimate." "Could be forged," Donovan dismissed without even looking. "Check the trunk." The radio on Donovan's shoulder crackled with a dispatch requesting an update. He stepped away to respond, giving Judge Vance a moment to assess the rapidly escalating situation. 3 police cruisers now blocked the street, morning traffic backing up in both directions. At least 7 bystanders recorded the scene on their phones. She remembered the exact statute they were violating. She had written the opinion on it last year. Simmons v. Department of Public Safety had established that officers must check identification before detention when no immediate danger exists. Carter popped the trunk and went still. "Donovan, you need to see this." Inside the trunk rested Judge Vance's judicial robes, carefully hung in a garment bag with the federal court seal visible on the breast pocket. Next to it sat her briefcase, containing case files for today's docket. Donovan glanced inside, unmoved. "Anyone can buy a costume. This doesn't feel right," Carter muttered, lifting the garment bag for closer inspection. "I am invoking my right to counsel," Judge Vance announced clearly, ensuring the dashboard camera captured her words. "I am also informing you that you are currently detaining a federal judge on her way to court, without cause, without checking readily available identification, and after being informed of my position." Donovan's radio crackled again, this time a different voice, deeper, more authoritative. "Unit 47, this is Sergeant Rossi. What's your current situation with the traffic stop at Maple and 5th? Donovan frowned at the unexpected inquiry. "Standard stolen vehicle procedure, Sergeant. Suspect detained, vehicle being searched. Has identification been verified?" The sergeant's question hung in the air. Before Donovan could respond, a 3rd police cruiser arrived. Sergeant Lena Rossi stepped out, her 20 years of experience evident in her measured movements. She surveyed the scene with practiced efficiency, the handcuffed woman in professional attire, the growing crowd, the open sedan trunk displaying judicial robes. "I requested backup, not supervision," Donovan muttered as Rossi approached. "And yet here I am," Rossi replied evenly. She turned to Judge Vance, maintaining a respectful distance. Ma'am, I'm Sergeant Rossi, may I ask your name? Judge Ariana Vance, Federal District Court, Eastern Division, Vance responded, standing straight despite the handcuffs. My identification is in my purse on the passenger seat, which I was attempting to retrieve when Officer Donovan escalated the situation. Rossi's eyes narrowed slightly. She recognized the name. Officer Carter, please retrieve the purse. As Carter complied, bringing the purse to Rossi rather than Donovan, the sergeant addressed Vance again. Judge, may I have your permission to open your purse and verify your identification? You have my consent, Vance confirmed, noting Rossi's procedural correctness, a stark contrast to Donovan's approach. Rossi carefully opened the purse, locating the wallet containing Vance's judicial credentials and driver's license. She examined both, her expression remaining professional, but her eyes widening slightly as she confirmed the woman's identity. Officers, remove these restraints immediately. Rossi ordered, her tone leaving no room for argument. Sergeant, this vehicle matches the description, Donovan began. Remove the restraints, officer. Now Rossi's command cut through his protest. The crowd watched as Carter quickly moved to uncuff Judge Vance, murmuring an apology as he did so. Donovan stood rigid, jaw clenched in defiance. This department is making a mistake, he insisted. No, Officer Donovan, Judge Vance said, rubbing her wrists. You've made several mistakes this morning, and now you're about to learn the consequences. Across the street, Attorney Maxwell ended his call and nodded confidently to Vance. The wheels of justice have begun turning, not in the direction Donovan anticipated. Please, step this way, Judge Vance. Sergeant Rossi said, gesturing toward her cruiser and away from the still-growing crowd. I'd like to speak with you privately. Donovan stepped forward. Sergeant, I haven't completed my investigation. The vehicle still needs, Officer Donovan, secure the scene and remain by your cruiser, Rossi interrupted, her voice still wrapped in procedural authority. Officer Carter, join us please. The mid-morning sun beat down on the asphalt as Vance followed Rossi to the command vehicle. Her court session began in 20 minutes, her judicial clerk had likely already notified the chambers about her delay. I apologize for this situation, Judge. Rossi said, once they were beside her cruiser, I need to document what's happened here. Officer Carter, please start a new incident report. Carter pulled out his department tablet, fingers hovering over the screen. The dashboard camera in Rossi's vehicle blinked red, adding another layer of documentation to the morning's events. Sergeant, I was on my way to preside over the People v. Metropolitan Police Department. Vance explained, a case concerning police misconduct during traffic stops. Rossi's expression remained professional, but her eyes revealed an understanding of the profound implications. I'm familiar with the case, Your Honor. It's received significant attention within the department. I need my vehicle released immediately. Vance continued, and I require the badge numbers of all officers involved, including dispatch recordings from the initial call. Carter typed rapidly, documenting every word. Rossi nodded, making her own notes on a small notepad. Officer, what was the exact description of the stolen vehicle you were looking for? Rossi asked Carter. He consulted his tablet. Dispatch reported a dark-colored luxury sedan, possibly a Viridian 500, stolen from the Highland District last night. Partial plate ending in JKW. And Judge Vance's vehicle, Rossi prompted. Liberty Motors S-Class, current year model, plate ending in RHT. Carter answered, the glaring discrepancy now obvious. Not even close, Rossi observed. She turned back to Vance. Judge, would you like transportation to the courthouse, or would you prefer to drive your own vehicle? Before Vance could answer, Officer Donovan approached, radio in hand. Sergeant, dispatch is requesting we bring the suspect in for formal questioning. Protocol for stolen vehicles requires. Judge Vance is not a suspect. Rossi stated firmly, and this is not a stolen vehicle. We need to verify that at the station. I need to verify that at the station, Donovan insisted. Vance watched the power struggle unfold, noting Donovan's unusual persistence despite mounting evidence of his error. His personnel file, she mused, would make interesting reading. Officer Donovan, return to your vehicle and stand by, Rossi ordered. The chief wants this handled by the book, Donovan countered, revealing his presumed protection. The sergeant's eyes narrowed. Which is precisely what I'm doing. Rossi turned to Vance. Judge, I apologize, but to resolve this matter completely, would you consent to accompanying us to the station? I can personally expedite the process and ensure you reach your courtroom as quickly as possible. Vance considered her options. Going to the station extended the record of this incident, creating more witnesses and documentation. Strategic patience had served her well for decades. I'll come to the station on one condition, she agreed. I want to make one phone call now, not upon arrival. Of course, Rossi nodded. Vance pulled out her phone and dialed her clerk. Marcus, please inform Chief Justice Hayes that I've been detained by officers Donovan and Carter during a traffic stop. Sergeant Rossi is currently attempting to resolve the situation. The People v. Metro PD hearing will need to be delayed by 1 hour. She listened briefly before continuing. Yes, exactly like the Hernandez case. Please have Leo Maxwell meet me at the central precinct with the case files. Another pause. Thank you. The dashboard camera captured every word as Vance ended the call. Donovan's face tightened as he began to grasp the magnitude of his mistake. She can ride with me, Rossi told Carter. Please secure her vehicle and have it brought to the station. As Vance slid into the back of Rossi's cruiser, the suffocating heat of the interior wrapped around her. Through the window, she watched Donovan gesturing angrily at Carter, his radio clutched in his white-knuckled grip. Sergeant Rossi's phone buzzed with a text from the Chief Justice. The screen illuminated briefly, displaying a message Vance couldn't quite read. Rossi's measured composure cracked for just a moment, revealing genuine concern as she slid into the driver's seat. Judge Vance, Rossi said quietly as they pulled away from the scene, I believe we have a significant situation developing. The central precinct buzzed with morning activity as Sergeant Rossi escorted Judge Vance through the main entrance. Officers glanced up from their desks, conversations halting mid-sentence at the unusual sight. Rossi guided Vance not to the standard processing area, but directly to the administrative conference room. Please wait here, Judge Vance, I'll handle the paperwork personally. Rossi said, her professionalism unwavering despite the tension radiating through the building. As Rossi exited, Vance took stock of her surroundings. The conference room offered a clear view of the bullpen through interior windows. Officers gathered in small clusters, whispered conversations punctuated by glances in her direction. Donovan arrived, striding purposefully toward the chief's office. Vance checked her watch, 9:42 a.m. Her courtroom sat empty while attorneys and spectators wondered about the unusual delay. The door opened as Rossi returned with a tablet and forms. Judge, I've pulled the complete dispatch record. There are discrepancies I'd like to address. What kind of discrepancies, Sergeant? Vance asked, though she already suspected the answer. Rossi placed the tablet between them, displaying the morning's dispatch log. The stolen vehicle report came in at 8:17 a.m. A dark-colored Viridian 500, with partial plate JKW, reportedly taken from the Highland District garage. She swiped to the next screen. Officer Donovan called in your plates at 9:14 a.m. Dispatch responded that your vehicle, a Liberty Motors S-Class, plate RHT, was not flagged in the system. Yet he proceeded to detain me, Vance observed. Yes, Rossi confirmed, making a note. He requested backup after dispatch cleared your vehicle. A memory surfaced in Vance's mind, Rossi attending a community policing seminar Vance had conducted last year. The sergeant had asked thoughtful questions about constitutional protections during stops and searches. 3 years ago, I presided over Williams v. State, Vance said. An officer detained a black business owner, despite dispatch clearing the vehicle. The department settled for $1.2 million. Rossi nodded slowly. I remember the case well. It led to our revised traffic stop protocols. Protocols Officer Donovan appears to have ignored, Vance added. The station erupted into chaos as a name appeared on the computer screen at the dispatch desk, visible through the window. An officer pointed to Vance's name on the monitor, urgency in his movements. The desk sergeant grabbed a phone, punching numbers with unusual haste. Sergeant, I need to see Officer Donovan's record. Vance said, particularly any complaints regarding traffic stops of minority drivers. Rossi hesitated. That would require authorization from. The door swung open as Chief Thomas Grant entered, his face drawn with concern. Judge Vance, I've just been informed of this situation. Chief Grant, Vance acknowledged. I believe we have a serious matter to discuss. Indeed, he agreed, taking a seat. Sergeant Rossi has briefed me on the initial details. I want to assure you, this incident will be thoroughly investigated. I was on my way to court, Chief Grant, Vance explained, to preside over the People v. Metropolitan Police Department, a case alleging systemic bias in traffic stops and searches. The chief's expression tightened, almost imperceptibly. I'm familiar with the case, as the federal judge assigned to evaluate whether your department requires Justice Department oversight. Vance continued. I find the timing of this morning's incident noteworthy. Sergeant Rossi stepped away, phone in hand, creating professional distance from the conversation while remaining within earshot. Judge Vance, I want to personally apologize for any inconvenience, Grant offered. We can have you at the courthouse within 15 minutes. This is considerably more than an inconvenience, Chief Grant. Vance corrected him. This is a direct violation of my Fourth Amendment rights by officers under your command, officers who ignored dispatcher confirmation that my vehicle was not the one reported stolen. Grant's carefully maintained composure slipped. The dispatcher confirmed your vehicle wasn't stolen before the stop escalated. Sergeant Rossi has the complete transcript, Vance confirmed. Officer Donovan requested backup after receiving that confirmation. Rossi returned to the table. Chief, I've confirmed the timeline. Dispatch cleared the judge's vehicle before Officer Donovan called for backup or removed her from the vehicle. Where is Officer Donovan now? Grant asked, tension evident in his voice. Waiting in your outer office, Rossi reported, along with Officer Carter. Vance observed the shift in dynamics, Grant reassessing the situation, Rossi's allegiance to proper procedure overriding departmental solidarity. Donovan, she knew, was isolated by his actions. Chief Grant, I need to make something absolutely clear, Vance said, leaning forward slightly. This incident will be thoroughly documented, not just for my personal vindication, but because it demonstrates precisely the pattern of behavior alleged in the People v. Metro PD case. Grant nodded grimly. I understand, Judge. Do you? Vance challenged. Because Officer Donovan's actions this morning may have just provided the evidence needed to place your entire department under federal oversight. The chief's phone buzzed with an incoming call. He checked the screen, his expression darkening further. It's the mayor. You should take that, Vance suggested. Meanwhile, I'll require the complete personnel files for both officers involved, all body camera and dashboard footage, dispatch recordings, and witness statements from civilians at the scene. 3 judges and the district attorney were now on a conference call, their secretaries frantically rescheduling dockets to address the unfolding situation. Vance knew the system was mobilizing, not just for her, but for what her experience represented. Sergeant Rossi, Vance said as the chief stepped away to take his call, you recognized the procedural violations immediately. Why did you respond to the scene personally? Rossi hesitated before answering. Your vehicle passed me 2 blocks before the stop. I recognized you from your community lectures on constitutional policing. When I heard the call for backup at that location, she paused. I had concerns. You knew Officer Donovan's history, Vance concluded. I've worked with him for 3 years, Rossi acknowledged. There have been patterns. Documented patterns. Vance pressed. 7 complaints filed, 2 formal reprimands, Rossi confirmed, all involving minority drivers, all dismissed due to lack of evidence or witnesses unwilling to testify. The atmosphere shifted as attorney Leo Maxwell appeared in the doorway, court documents tucked under his arm and determination in his stride. Judge Vance, he greeted her formally, maintaining professional distance despite their years of collaboration. The Chief Justice has called an emergency meeting of the Judicial Council. They've temporarily reassigned the People v. Metro PD pending resolution of this morning's incident. Reassigned or delayed? Vance asked, noting the critical distinction. Reassigned to you, specifically, in your capacity as head of the Judicial Conduct Committee, Maxwell clarified, with expanded scope to include this incident as evidence. Sergeant Rossi's gaze shifted between them, understanding dawning in her eyes. The booking officer froze, fingers hovering over the keyboard as he processed the information. Chief Grant returned, his conversation with the mayor evidently concluded, his face grim. Judge Vance, how would you like to proceed? The courthouse clock struck 10 a.m. Her trial was scheduled to begin 5 minutes ago. In the judicial chambers, clerks fielded increasingly urgent calls from attorneys present for the People v. Metro PD hearing. The empty bench spoke volumes to those gathered in the courtroom. Back at the precinct, Chief Grant led Judge Vance, Sergeant Rossi and Attorney Maxwell into his private office. The Venetian blinds sliced the morning sunlight into thin stripes across the polished desk. Judge Vance, I want to resolve this situation appropriately, Grant began, his tone calibrated for damage control. Officer Donovan's actions were clearly inconsistent with department protocols. They were inconsistent with federal law. Vance corrected him, placing her judicial credentials on his desk. The gold emblem caught the light, a reminder of her authority that transcended the police department's jurisdiction. Grant nodded reluctantly. Yes, of course, I've instructed Internal Affairs to begin an immediate investigation. That's insufficient, Chief, Vance replied. This incident falls under federal purview now. Maxwell opened his briefcase, extracting a court order signed by the Chief Justice herself. This authorizes immediate preservation of all evidence related to this morning's incident, including Officer Donovan's complete service record, all communications preceding the traffic stop, and station security footage from today. Grant's face drained of color as he listened to his phone. The voice on the other end spoke urgently enough that Vance caught fragments: Federal Review and Justice Department notification. Outside the office, officers moved with renewed purpose. The department's legal counsel arrived, briefcase in hand, jacket hastily buttoned. The atmosphere shifted from routine to crisis management. Vance checked her watch again, 10:17. The attorneys for the People v. Metro PD waited, unaware that their case had just acquired powerful new evidence. Chief Grant, Vance said, I'd like to speak with Officers Donovan and Carter separately. Of course, Grant agreed too quickly. Sergeant Rossi can arrange that immediately. As Rossi stepped out to organize the interviews, Vance noticed a memo on Grant's desk, a department-wide body camera initiative she had mandated in her ruling last month. The implementation date tomorrow. Maxwell leaned close to Vance, his voice low. Judge, the courthouse security team is reviewing footage from 2 weeks ago. Officer Donovan was seen outside your chambers, apparently off-duty. This new information slotted into place in Vance's mental framework, not just a random stop, but potentially targeted surveillance. The pattern expanded, implications deepening. Through the office window, she observed Donovan pacing in the waiting area, his confident demeanor now fractured by uncertainty. Carter sat separately, head bowed as he reviewed his notes. Chief Grant's face suggests he just received troubling news, Vance murmured to Maxwell. The department's already under review for 3 excessive force complaints, Maxwell confirmed. This incident could trigger the federal oversight they've been fighting to avoid. Rossi returned, tablet in hand. Interview rooms are ready, Judge Vance. Officer Carter has agreed to speak with you first. Grant's phone buzzed again. The chief's expression shifted from concern to alarm as he viewed the message. What is it? Vance asked, though she already suspected. The Attorney General's office, Grant answered, voice tight. They're sending a representative. The department's wall clock ticked loudly in the sudden silence. Every minute that passed reshaped the balance of power in the room. Chief Grant closed the door to his office, his face grim. Judge Vance sat across from Officer Carter in interview room 2, Sergeant Rossi standing sentinel by the door. The stark fluorescent lighting cast harsh shadows across Carter's increasingly troubled expression. Officer Carter, Vance began. Please walk me through this morning's events from your perspective. Carter straightened his posture, his eyes fixed on the middle distance. We received a call about a stolen vehicle at approximately 8:45 a.m., a dark-colored luxury sedan, partial plate ending in JKW. And when did you join Officer Donovan at the scene of my stop? Vance asked. I arrived at 9:16 a.m. as backup, Carter confirmed. Officer Donovan had already initiated contact with you. Vance leaned forward slightly. Did Officer Donovan inform you that dispatch had already cleared my vehicle before you arrived? Carter blinked, surprise evident. No, Your Honor. He stated it was a confirmed stolen vehicle match. Rossi made a note on her tablet, the soft tapping of her fingers punctuating the silence. Officer Carter, Vance continued. Did you personally verify my identification when it was presented? No, Your Honor, he admitted. Officer Donovan instructed me to search the vehicle while he maintained control of the situation. And when you discovered my judicial robes and credentials in the vehicle, I informed Officer Donovan immediately, Carter said, discomfort visible in his posture. He dismissed them as possibly costume items. Vance nodded, allowing silence to fill the room. The interview room camera recorded every word, every expression. Through the observation window, Chief Grant watched with growing concern. One final question, Officer Carter. Have you witnessed Officer Donovan conduct similar stops of minority drivers before? Carter hesitated, the internal conflict evident in his expression. Officer Donovan has his own approach to traffic enforcement. That's not what I asked, Vance pressed. Yes, Carter finally admitted. I've observed him conduct stops of minority drivers with heightened scrutiny. Thank you for your honesty, Officer Carter, Vance concluded. Sergeant Rossi will take your formal statement. As Carter exited, Attorney Maxwell entered with a laptop. Judge, I've received the dispatch recordings and Officer Donovan's body camera footage from this morning. Vance nodded to Rossi. Please bring in Officer Donovan. While they waited, Maxwell placed the laptop before Vance. The time-stamped dispatch record contradicts everything Officer Donovan claimed. Dispatch clearly informed him, your vehicle wasn't the stolen Viridian before he escalated the stop. The door opened as Officer Donovan entered, his confident stride now reduced to cautious steps. He took the seat across from Vance, his eyes challenging despite his precarious position. Officer Donovan, Vance began, her voice perfectly calm, I'd like to understand why you continue to detain me. After dispatch confirmed my vehicle was not stolen. I had reasonable suspicion based on the vehicle description, he replied automatically. Vance allowed the statement to hang in the air before responding. The stolen vehicle was a dark-colored Viridian with partial plate JKW. I drive a Liberty Motors S-Class with plate RHT. Please explain the basis for your reasonable suspicion. Donovan shifted in his chair. The suspect description. There was no suspect description in the stolen vehicle report, Rossi interrupted, referring to her tablet. The Viridian was stolen from a parking garage overnight. No suspects were identified. Sweat beaded on Donovan's forehead as he recalibrated. I believe the vehicle could still be connected to the theft. Based on what evidence? Vance asked. Officer instinct, Donovan replied. Jaw tight, years of experience. Vance studied him for a moment. Officer Donovan, are you aware that I served 8 years in military intelligence before attending law school? That I specialized in detecting deception patterns? His eyes widened slightly, uncertainty flashing across his face. Your body language, vocal stress patterns, and pupil dilation all indicate deliberate deception, Vance continued. Now let me ask again. Why did you escalate a routine traffic stop after dispatch cleared your vehicle? I want union representation, Donovan demanded suddenly. That's your right for departmental disciplinary matters, Vance acknowledged. However, this interview concerns potential federal civil rights violations, which fall under my judicial purview. Maxwell turned the laptop screen toward Donovan, displaying the dispatch log. The timestamp showed dispatch cleared Judge Vance's vehicle at 9:12 a.m. You called for backup at 9:14, claiming a confirmed stolen vehicle. Donovan's expression hardened as he recognized the evidence mounting against him. I want to speak with the chief. Chief Grant is currently speaking with the Attorney General's office, Rossi informed him, regarding potential federal oversight of this department. The pen scratching on incident reports filled the momentary silence. Chairs scraped across the floor as Rossi adjusted her position, standing directly behind Donovan. Officer Donovan, Vance said finally, did you know who I was when you initiated the traffic stop this morning? The question hung in the air, loaded with implications. Donovan's silence provided its own answer. Interview concluded at 10:43 a.m., Rossi stated for the record, stopping the recording. Judge Vance, your vehicle has been brought around front, Chief Grant announced, holding the station's front door open. The midday sun bathed the precinct steps as Vance emerged from the building's shadow. She straightened her jacket and stepped into the sunlight. The release felt temporary, a brief respite before the storm that was building. Attorney Maxwell walked beside her, his phone buzzing continuously with messages from the courthouse. The Chief Justice herself waits on the courthouse steps, Maxwell informed her, scrolling through the cascade of notifications. The entire Judicial Council has convened an emergency session. Vance nodded, taking a deep cleansing breath. The events of the morning had unfolded with remarkable speed, yet the most significant consequences remained ahead. Leo, I want the complete personnel files for both officers before the hearing, she instructed. And subpoena Officer Donovan's personal phone records for the past month. Already in process, Maxwell confirmed. The Chief Justice granted expedited discovery given the circumstances. Sergeant Rossi approached with Vance's car keys. Judge Vance, I've had your vehicle thoroughly inspected. Everything's in order. Thank you, Sergeant, Vance acknowledged. Your professionalism this morning is noted. Rossi hesitated, then added quietly, I've submitted a formal statement regarding Officer Donovan's pattern of conduct. I should have done it sooner. Vance studied the sergeant's face, recognizing the courage such an action required within police culture. The timing of your statement is significant, Sergeant. It demonstrates integrity when faced with clear misconduct. Rossi nodded once, understanding the weight of Vance's words. As Vance slid behind the wheel of her Liberty Motors S-Class, she caught sight of Officer Donovan exiting the station with his union representative. His face darkened when he spotted her. The look contained more than anger. There was fear now, the dawning realization that his actions had consequences beyond his control. Maxwell's phone rang with a call from the courthouse. Yes, we're departing now, he confirmed. Judge Vance will arrive in approximately 12 minutes. Vance started the engine, mentally shifting from wronged citizen back to federal judge. The transformation felt seamless. Both roles demanded precision, patience, and an unwavering commitment to justice. Leo, she said as they pulled away from the precinct, it's time to bring everything to light. The federal courthouse rose like a marble sentinel against the midday sky. News vans already crowded the plaza, reporters positioning themselves for the unfolding story. Judge Vance entered through the judicial chamber's entrance, avoiding the media gauntlet. Chief Justice Eleanor Hayes met her in the private corridor, her typically stoic expression replaced by genuine concern. Ariana, this is unprecedented. Are you certain you want to proceed today? Absolutely certain, Vance confirmed, removing her coat. The Peopleville Metro PD case and this morning's incident are now inextricably linked. The courtroom is at capacity, Hayes informed her. Every law enforcement official in the city seems to be present. Vance nodded, unsurprised. Good, this needs witnesses. In the robing room she slipped into her judicial garments, the same robes Officer Donovan had dismissed as a costume. The heavy black fabric settled on her shoulders with familiar weight. She checked her appearance in the mirror, adjusting the white collar that contrasted sharply against the obsidian fabric. Judge Maxwell said from the doorway, everyone's assembled. Chief Grant arrived with department counsel. Officers Donovan and Carter are present with union representation. Sergeant Rossi just took her seat, and our evidence is ready for presentation. Sequential and comprehensive, Vance confirmed. She took a steadying breath. 20 years on the federal bench had prepared her for moments precisely like this one, when the law must stand firm against those who abuse their authority. Then let's proceed, she said, stepping toward the courtroom. The bailiff's voice rang out as she entered. All rise. The United States District Court for the Eastern District is now in session. The Honorable Judge Ariana Vance presiding. The packed courtroom rose in unison. Vance surveyed the assembly as she took her seat at the bench. Chief Grant sat with his legal team at the front. Officers Donovan and Carter occupied seats behind them, their expressions tense. Sergeant Rossi sat separately, spine straight, gaze forward. Be seated, Vance instructed, her voice carrying effortlessly through the chamber. This court now addresses the consolidated matters of the people in Metropolitan Police Department and the incident involving this judge earlier today. She placed her hands flat on the bench, leaning forward slightly. For those unfamiliar with federal procedure, I will explain my decision to preside over this matter despite being personally involved. Federal judiciary rules permit a judge to hear cases involving themselves when the matter concerns the integrity of the judicial process itself. The courtroom hung on her every word, the silence absolute. Moreover, she continued, as my military and judicial records will confirm, I am uniquely qualified to evaluate the constitutional implications of today's events. Vance nodded to Maxwell, who activated the courtroom's display system. Her military service record appeared on screens throughout the chamber. Before my appointment to the federal bench, I served 8 years in military intelligence with the United States Army, achieving the rank of major. I graduated first in my class from West Point, specialized in counterintelligence at Fort Huachuca, and served as legal counsel for the Judge Advocate General's Corps. The screens transitioned to her judicial appointment records. Following my military service, I graduated summa cum laude from Harvard Law, clerked for the Supreme Court, and have served on this bench for 20 years. I currently chair the Judicial Conduct Committee for this district. Vance paused, allowing her qualifications to register fully with the audience. Officer Donovan shifted uncomfortably in his seat. This morning's incident provides a unique opportunity to examine police conduct, not through second-hand testimony, but through direct evidence. Mr. Maxwell, please proceed with Exhibit 1. The courtroom fell silent as the video began to play. Dashboard camera footage captured the entire traffic stop, from initial approach to Vance's removal from her vehicle. The crystal-clear audio recorded every word of the interaction. Note the timestamp, Vance directed as the video continued. At 9:12 a.m., dispatch informs Officer Donovan that my vehicle is not the stolen Viridian. 17 seconds later, he requests backup for a confirmed stolen vehicle. The attorneys representing the police department exchanged concerned glances. This direct contradiction could not be explained away. As the video concluded, Maxwell transitioned to the next exhibit, bystander footage from multiple angles, showing the escalation from additional perspectives. These recordings were voluntarily provided by 7 citizens who witnessed the incident, Vance explained. They corroborate the dashboard camera footage and provide additional angles not captured by police equipment. Officer Donovan's union representative leaned over, whispering urgently in his ear. The officer's face had lost its confident defiance, replaced by the pallor of realization. Exhibit 3, Vance continued, the complete dispatch recordings. The audio played clearly through the courtroom speakers. Unit 47, vehicle plate RHE shows registered to Ariana Vance. No flags or alerts, not a match for the stolen Viridian. Followed by Donovan's response, dispatch, I have a confirmed stolen vehicle. Requesting backup at Maple and 5th, the direct contradiction hung in the air, indefensible. Exhibit 4, Vance announced, Officer Donovan's personnel file. Maxwell displayed the document on the courtroom screens, key sections highlighted for emphasis. This file contains 12 civilian complaints over 3 years, all filed by minority drivers, alleging improper stops, excessive force or unlawful searches. All 12 complaints were dismissed due to insufficient evidence or witness credibility issues. Vance looked directly at Chief Grant. However, when cross-referenced with dispatch records, a pattern emerges. In 9 of these incidents, Officer Donovan proceeded with detention after dispatch had cleared the vehicles or individuals in question. The chief's expression remained carefully neutral, but his attorney scribbled notes with increasing urgency. Exhibit 5, Vance continued, security footage from this courthouse, dated 2 weeks ago. The video showed Officer Donovan in plain clothes, observing the judicial entrance. He followed Vance to her car, photographing her vehicle with his personal phone. Officer Donovan was not on duty that day, Vance noted, nor was there any legitimate police business that would bring him to this courthouse. She turned her attention directly to Donovan. Officer, would you care to explain your presence at this federal building while off duty, and your apparent surveillance of a federal judge? The union representative placed a restraining hand on Donovan's arm, preventing him from responding. Perhaps this will clarify matters, Vance continued, nodding to Maxwell. Exhibit 6, Officer Donovan's phone records, obtained via federal subpoena 30 minutes ago. The records appeared on screen, specific numbers highlighted. These records show multiple calls between Officer Donovan and Simon Rojas, the defendant in last month's police brutality case, over which I presided. Mr. Rojas, formerly an officer with the Metropolitan Police Department, was found liable for $3.2 million in damages. A murmur rippled through the courtroom as the connections became clear. The timing of these calls, immediately before and after my ruling, and again yesterday, following my decision in the departmental review case, suggests coordination that extends beyond Officer Donovan's individual actions. Vance turned her attention to Sergeant Rossi. Sergeant, based on your experience and the evidence presented, would you characterize Officer Donovan's actions this morning as consistent with department policy? Rossi stood, her response clear and unwavering. No, Your Honor. His actions violated multiple departmental protocols and, in my professional assessment, constitutional protections against unreasonable search and seizure. Thank you, Sergeant, Vance acknowledged. Your testimony is noted. Officer Donovan's personnel file landed with a thud on the bench as Vance picked up the thick folder. This court now faces a critical question, she continued. Was this morning's incident an isolated abuse of authority, or evidence of systemic failure within the Metropolitan Police Department? She surveyed the courtroom, her gaze lingering on each key figure. The People v. Metro PD case alleges that minority drivers face disproportionate stops, searches, and detentions, even when dispatch clears their vehicles, even when identification is presented, even when no reasonable suspicion exists. Vance leaned forward. My personal experience this morning demonstrated precisely the pattern alleged in the People v. Metro PD. The evidence is not merely compelling, it is conclusive. She straightened, her decision made. This court finds sufficient evidence to expand the People v. Metro PD inquiry into a comprehensive department-wide review under federal oversight. Chief Grant rose to object, but Vance continued. The Department of Justice will appoint special monitors to oversee all aspects of Metropolitan Police Department operations for a period of not less than 3 years. All traffic stop data will be independently analyzed for pattern and practice violations. She turned to Officer Donovan. As for the constitutional violations committed against this court, I am recusing myself from those determinations. Those matters will be referred to Judge Williams in the Western District for appropriate action. Judge Vance read the final affidavit, her voice unwavering. This court retains jurisdiction over the implementation of reforms and will require quarterly progress reports. The first report is due in 90 days. She lifted her gavel. Officer Donovan is immediately suspended pending termination proceedings. Officer Carter is placed on administrative leave pending further investigation. The gavel struck with finality. This court is adjourned until tomorrow at 9 a.m., when we will begin structuring the oversight framework. As Vance rose, the courtroom remained standing in stunned silence. Through the windows, television cameras captured the moment. Justice realigned, not through violence or vengeance, but through the methodical application of law. 6 months later, recruits filed into the Academy auditorium. The room buzzed with anticipation as cadets took their seats, Academy manuals open on their laps. The cover read, Constitutional Policing, Rights, Responsibilities and Reform. Judge Ariana Vance stood at the podium, her judicial robes exchanged for a tailored suit. The projector displayed dashboard camera footage, her own traffic stop, now standard teaching material for every officer in training. Your badge grants you authority, she told the attentive cadets, but authority without accountability becomes tyranny. The back doors opened as Sergeant Rossi, now Captain Rossi, entered. Her new insignia caught the light as she took her place at the side of the stage. Under her leadership, the department's newly formed Accountability Division had begun reshaping police culture from within. 6 months ago, a traffic stop exposed systemic failures within this department, Vance continued. Today I'm here to discuss the transformations those failures have produced. She advanced the presentation to display the department's revised metrics: complaints down 47%, unlawful detentions reduced by 62%, community trust ratings improving steadily month over month. Change is difficult, Vance acknowledged, particularly when it requires examining deeply ingrained practices, but necessary change produces justice, not just for citizens, but for officers committed to honorable service. In the front row, Chief Thomas Grant listened with newfound humility. The federal oversight, initially viewed as punishment, had become an opportunity for departmental renewal. His resistance had transformed into cautious collaboration. The incident that catalyzed these reforms wasn't isolated, Vance explained. It represented a pattern that had developed over years, a pattern that undermined constitutional protections and eroded community trust. She advanced to the next slide, Officer Donovan's termination notice beside his subsequent federal indictment for civil rights violations. The former officer now awaited trial, his connection to the previously convicted Simon Rojas fully exposed through phone records and financial transactions. Officer Carter chose a different path, Vance noted, displaying his statement of cooperation. By acknowledging his failure to intervene and committing to reform, he exemplifies the potential for growth within the system. Carter now worked with the Accountability Division, his first-hand experience informing training on peer intervention and ethical policing. His testimony against Donovan proved instrumental in the federal case. The strength of our justice system lies not in its perfection, but in its capacity for correction, Vance continued. When we identify failures, we create opportunities for improvement. She gestured to Captain Rossi, inviting her to join the presentation. Rossi approached the podium with measured confidence, her transformation from witness to leader evident in her posture. Captain Rossi pins on her new badge, Vance observed as Rossi displayed her credentials, not as a reward for loyalty to individuals, but as recognition of her loyalty to principles. Rossi addressed the cadets directly. 6 months ago I faced a choice between protecting a colleague and protecting the Constitution I swore to uphold. I chose the Constitution. Every day you will face similar choices. The cadets absorbed her words, many taking notes. This was not abstract theory, but practical wisdom from officers who had navigated ethical challenges firsthand. The dashboard camera that recorded my detention has become your protection, Vance told them. Transparency safeguards officers who serve with integrity. It exposes those who abuse their authority. The camera doesn't lie, it simply observes. The presentation shifted to statistics from departments nationwide. Those embracing accountability measures showed improved safety for citizens and officers alike. Those resisting reform continued to face lawsuits, settlements, and declining public trust. Constitutional policing isn't just legally required, Vance emphasized, it's strategically advantageous. Communities that trust their police departments provide more cooperation, more information, and more support. As the session concluded, Vance opened the floor for questions. The cadets engaged thoughtfully, their inquiries revealing genuine commitment to ethical service rather than perfunctory compliance. After the final question, Vance offered her closing thoughts. When I was wrongfully detained 6 months ago, I had a choice. I could seek personal vindication, or I could pursue systemic reform. I chose reform, because lasting justice comes through transformed institutions, not individual penalties. She surveyed the room, making eye contact with the future officers. Each of you will hold extraordinary power over the lives of citizens. Use that power with wisdom, restraint, and respect for the constitutional protections that define our nation. The auditorium filled with applause as Vance concluded her presentation. Outside, television crews waited to interview her about the department's progress under federal oversight, a model now being studied by police departments across the country. Judge Vance took her seat at the bench, a new case before her. The courtroom looked the same as it did 6 months ago, yet everything had changed. The officers providing security stood taller, their training reformed, their understanding of constitutional limits clearer. The morning sunlight streamed through the courthouse windows, illuminating the scales of justice mounted on the wall. Balance restored, not through vengeance, but through accountability. Vance thought briefly of Officer Donovan, now facing the consequences of his actions through the same judicial system he had disregarded. His case proceeded, not as retribution, but as affirmation that no one, regardless of badge or position, stands above the law. She opened the case file before her, another allegation of systemic misconduct in a different institution. The work continued, one case at a time, one reform at a time. Justice requires vigilance, courage, and the willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. The bailiff called the court to order. Judge Vance straightened her robes, ready to apply the law with the impartiality and integrity that had defined her career. The system wasn't perfect, but its capacity for self-correction remained its greatest strength. "This court is now in session," she announced, her voice steady and clear.